So I heard about this woman who filmed her abortion. You know what that is? That's a snuff flick.
I think with that propaganda.
Now, I'm gonna step on some toes with this one. And those toes are most likely gonna be Christian toes, I reckon. Now, I say that the filming of this abortion to be made public as a propaganda tool for abortion is a snuff flick. Those who are pro-abortion will profoundly disagree and cannot grasp or understand why I would think that. They can't understand that a human being is being deprived of life without due process. These people are hardwired. There's even people who are pro-abortion who have kids. And to them I would ask, when you decided to become a parent, at what point did you start loving your kid? Oftentimes that love begins when conception is confirmed. So it's rather contradictory for a pro-abortion parent to love what they consider just a lump of cells. But of course, liberals can't process that and will justify why it's okay to impose wrongful death upon a kid in utero. They don't think it's wrongful death. But again, they don't understand that language and will try to justify themselves. And I'll remind you that criminal acts are preceded by a justification process. If a person is going to steal, they justify it. They justify why they deserve it, or the person they're stealing from already has enough. And it's only fair that the thief gets some of it. Our government is encouraged to do it all the time. Now, whether it's adultery, slander, murder, before the act is committed, the person who does it tries to justify it or rationalize why it's okay for them to do it before they do it. Abortionists go through the same rationalizing and justification process before imposing a wrongful death. And you will have a stupid hard time getting a person who's pro-abortion to understand that. Now, here's where I'm gonna tick some Christians and atheists off too. Incidents like this are why I don't quite agree with speaking in tongues. Now, what the hell does that have to do with abortion or anything social political? I've been coming down on conservatives about how their communication is ineffective, but it's not entirely their fault. It has to be considered that some people simply can't understand you. And that's not all your fault. How does that apply to speaking in tongues? Now, let me say first, this is not meant to be demeaning or condescending to those who believe in speaking in tongues. Now, maybe I missed it, but I have not read in the Bible where Jesus told us to speak in tongues. I have read that Jesus gave specific instructions on how to pray, and it did not involve speaking in an indiscernible language. In fact, I believe he said, when you pray, pray like this, and he gave the model prayer, and he gave it in a distinguishable language. Anytime anybody heard Jesus praying, they heard him praying in a distinguishable language. Even when Jesus was praying so deep that he sweat blood, he wasn't saying things that were indistinguishable. He spoke clearly. Jesus may have spoken parables, but that's about as far as he went to say something that you had to stretch to understand. The only thing that makes speaking in tongues a miracle is if you start speaking another national language you've never learned before. That happened in the Bible, but speaking indiscernibly is not a miracle. Those who were outside listening were from different nations, and they heard people in the upper room speaking in their native languages. But to others who were hardwired unbelievers, wrote them off as being babbling drunkards. And then it dawned on me about speaking in the Spirit, or speaking in tongues, as some would insist. You know what speaking spiritually sounds like? It sounds like speaking selflessly. Like in the case of abortion, those who are pro-abortion are speaking selfish. They're only considering their convenience, and they will try to justify imposing wrongful death upon a kid in utero because it's in the best interest of everybody. It's a very selfish mindset that does not understand a selfless language, a language that is a dialect of the Spirit, which means that you do not at all have to speak in an indiscernible language to be speaking in the Spirit. As I can assure you right now, there are those listening to me who do not understand a lick of what I'm saying and reject it. I might as well be babbling to them in an indiscernible language like this dude. I can be speaking to someone in plain language concerning the Spirit, and they will not understand me if they have a hardwired secular worldview. Conservatives, people aren't understanding you, and it's not all your fault. The language of your worldview is truly foreign to liberals. Jesus spoke the truth to the Pharisees and Sadducees in a plain national language, yet what he said to them was so foreign and offensive to them, they had him tortured and killed. Even when Jesus hung on the cross, which should have had him babbling in delirium at the verge of death, he didn't even take that time to speak in an indiscernible language. We know what he said, but that doesn't mean there will be those out there who understood what he said. So take heart, Christian conservatives. Not everybody is going to understand us. Not everybody understands Jesus. He still tried though, and he reached some. We're not going to reach everybody either, but we got to try. We're called to be salt and light, which means we have to find ways to flavor our message and find ways to promote it so that those who didn't like it may acquire a taste for it and be the light that helps them to find it. I'm Alfonso Rachel with ZoNation, and the language of liberals and secularists are easy to understand because it's pretty much our first language, because everybody learns the language of selfishness first. Mine, and the authority of the house has to make you share, which turns into share the wealth, which is class warfare. Or for example, this fetus is mine and I can kill it if I want. Some of us learn a second language, a language that is apart from the selfish secular language. And no matter how you plainly speak it, it sounds like gibberish to them. By the way, be sure to support Philip McAleer and Ann McElhenney's film on Kermit Gosnell. Talk about a dude who does not understand the plain language of being told his practice was evil. That's a snuff flick.